So welcome to tonight's webinar. I'm very happy to see so many people and very happy to introduce Cynthia. And for those of you who don't know Cynthia, she's the co-founder with her husband Peter of the Awaken Life Project, which is based in Portugal, but has members and retreat participants all over the world. We're based here in the mountains of central Portugal. The home of the Awaken Life Project is Quinta de Miserela, but Cynthia also teaches all over the world. And I think with that, I'll hand it over to you, Cynthia.
Okay. Well, it's good to see everybody tonight. Some familiar faces and some new faces. It's always a good mix. I'm in Lisbon right now, and right behind me, I don't know if you can see, there's a couple of posters. So I'm going to read them to you, because if I move my camera, it'll take me a half an hour to get set up again. But basically, so this is in the apartment that we're staying in, and I found it just kind of really funny. So one of them says, "You were born to be real, not to be perfect." Okay, so maybe that might help a few of you that are perfectionists, always trying to be perfect. And the other one says, "It feels good to be lost, going in the right direction." So I think I landed in the right apartment. So I just wanted to share that with you. Okay, so let's start as we usually do with just a little bit of a guided meditation. So if everybody can just sit up straight. And if you want to sit cross-legged, that's fine, or put your feet flat on the floor. And close your eyes. And take a deep breath in through your nose, letting your lungs expand and the air going down into the belly. And exhale. And again, inhale, big deep breath. And as you exhale, relax any tension you might be feeling in your shoulders, your arms, your legs. And a couple more big inhales on your own, at your own pace. But each time you take that big in-breath, do it fully. And relax the body and let the breath and the body work together. So there's one natural flow of inhalation and exhalation and release of tension. And when you're ready, you can just breathe a little bit more normally, not so deep. But let the breathing be natural. And don't go back to breathing in a shallow way, which is normally how we breathe. So again, feel the breath and the air entering the body. And be aware of it as it exits the body. And as you put your attention on the breath, realize that there's only one thing going on. There's no separation between the breath, the inhale, the air entering the body, and the exhale as it leaves the body. There's no in and there's no out. The breath coming into the body is one form of consciousness, entering another form of consciousness. And as it exhales, it's leaving one form of consciousness and releasing back into another form of consciousness. We always think that there's an inside and an outside. But as you breathe and you recognize the breath is entering the body and exiting the body, realize that you are actually aware of this process occurring. And as you recognize this awareness, realize there is no separation between the breath, the body. There is no inside, there is no outside. There's just different forms of consciousness interacting with each other. So just appreciate that for a moment. And allow yourself to breathe and release the tension and relax. Open the heart, relax the shoulders. Be aware that the air is relaxing the body. The air is consciousness. The body is consciousness. And you are that which is aware, which is also consciousness. So if the mind is busy, the movement of mind is also consciousness. You may have the experience that the movement of mind is happening in your head between your ears. But again, recognize the movement of mind and the thought or the belief that it's happening in your head are all just objects arising in your awareness. And those objects, whether it be thought, feeling, the body, the breath, are all just different modifications of that one consciousness. So the movement of mind, the body being breathed, is all the same thing. Any sound that you might be hearing, any tension you might be feeling, it's all happening in your awareness. So you are not only the body. You are not only what you think or what you feel. You are all of it. You are thought, you are feeling, you are sensation. But it's not you as a separate I. It's you as consciousness. You that is not inhibited. Thought is thought. It doesn't inhibit consciousness. It just is consciousness. Feeling is feeling. It is consciousness. And it doesn't limit consciousness. So as you sit, you might have all sorts of things arising in your experience. You might have a thought that says, I don't know what she's talking about. But just recognize that that thought is arising within your awareness. And you are that which is aware. And that thought is just a thought. It has no more meaning about you as an individual than the sensation of your heart beating in the body right now, or maybe the sound of a bird. It's just the interplay of consciousness, and you are that which is playing, and you are consciousness that is aware. So there appears to be separate objects. One object might be you, that you call yourself, your body. One might be thought, which seems separate. An object like a tree outside your house, or the chair that you're sitting in. It's all one thing. It appears to be separate, but it is all modifications of that one. And if you recognize that you are that which is aware, you can watch the play of all the modifications of that one consciousness. And you can recognize that you are free. Free from the attachment of thinking that you're the separate self, in the middle, controlling everything. Even the belief that you are a separate self, in the middle, controlling everything, is just another object arising as consciousness. And you are that. So you don't have to figure anything out. You can allow yourself to relax and enjoy all experience. And you don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to change it. You don't have to like it. You can just rest and be and embrace the deep spiritual truth that no matter what you think and no matter what you feel, you are always that which is aware. And you, as consciousness itself, can play in this world of manifestation with all the different manifestations of you as that one. So that means you interact with other human beings, animals, trees. You can appreciate the differences, but you will also interact with your own thought and feelings that may arise in. But you see, you don't have to fight with anything. You don't have to compete with anything. You can enjoy just being. And you don't have to change any aspect of your experience. Why do you need to change the different modifications of consciousness that are arising? If it's all consciousness, it's all God. So take a moment to just be and watch and be aware and rest. And if you find the mind trying to change something, the movement to try to fix something, you don't need to do anything with that either. It's just a movement of mind. It's just a habit. And it's still a modification of consciousness. So it doesn't matter if the mind is busy or quiet. It doesn't matter if the body is completely relaxed or feeling some tension. Everything is okay. Absolutely okay. So even if you have a thought that arises that everything is not okay, it's just a thought, another modification of consciousness, another modification of God. No matter what you think, you cannot get away from the truth that there is only one. Everything is already okay. And you are that one consciousness. And the body that you call yourself is a modification of that one. And even with all the problems you think you might have, or all the things you think are wrong with you in the world, you still can't get away from the truth that all of it is consciousness. So you need to find this out for yourself. And the way you do it right now is to recognize in this moment that you are that which is aware of the experiences that are arising. And first and foremost, you are that which is aware. You are not a separate self. It doesn't exist. Just because a thought arises and says you're a separate self doesn't mean that a separate self exists. It just means that a thought's arising, and the content of that thought is, I am separate. There is no separate self. There is no inner or outer. There really is only God, consciousness. And you are that. In all forms. Not just the body-mind that you recognize to be yourself. So take a deep breath in. Feel it, and exhale. And fully feel the body and the breath. And another deep breath in and exhale. And be aware that you're aware as this breathing process is going on. And one more time as you inhale, allow yourself to smile at the wonder of it all. And exhale and relax and just let that smile become a natural part of your face, beyond any constriction that you impose. And when you're ready, just open your eyes and become aware of more modifications of yourself in this world of manifestation. You see, so when you open your eyes, it's really no different than when you close your eyes. The view just changes. It's all still modifications of consciousness. Isn't that interesting? The view is constantly changing, but you are not. I think that's fascinating if you really think about it. There's a lot of things that we need to think about, and there's a lot of things we never even question. And one of those things that we never question is the fact that I am separate. I am isolated and I'm alone. It's just one of these beliefs that we basically have since we're born. You know, we're born into a world of manifestation. If you think about it, in the unmanifest, there's only that. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to kind of dramatize this a little bit, but all of a sudden you take this unmanifested form that's just is, and you squeeze it and you put it into a baby that's inside of a body, and then you squeeze that out of the mother into this world where all of a sudden, instead of being this, you know, this unleashed, no limitation existence, you've just been squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. Then you have to pop out of something you don't even know what it is into something you don't even know what it is. And then you find yourself in a world where all of a sudden you feel like you're separate from that one. that you were completely immersed in as yourself moments before. If you just think about it for a moment, because we've all gone through that experience, it's one experience we can all relate to. We've all had that one experience. You know, and even if you were born cesarean, it's still somewhat similar. It might be a little bit less dramatic as you're being born, but it's still the same thing. So think about it for a moment. We've all had that experience. We've all been plunged into a world where the assumption is that we're separate and we're alone. So everybody can relate to that. And then as human beings, what we do with that, we have all the same experience, but how we interpret that experience is the same because we all think we're separate. But then how we relate to that interpretation, we have our own kind of unique expressions of that. You know, some of us flow with that a little bit better than others. You know, some people have a harder time living in this world. Some people, you know, they relate to this isolation and aloneness in a different way. Some people become overachievers to prove that they're worthy and they're good. Some people just become rebels, you know, because they're angry and they feel like, I don't know what I'm doing here in this world. I don't feel at home here. There's something wrong. So, you know, as we grow up, how we relate to the world, you know, changes. As our bodies change, as situations change, events in our life happen, then we start relating to those events. But what's happening from the moment that we're born pretty much is there's a contraction of consciousness. There's a contraction of I am that which is everything into I am Cynthia and I am afraid and I have a problem. So the reason I'm talking about this at the beginning is because the topic of the talk tonight is, what is it? I wrote it down, I always forget. It's self-improvement versus spiritual transformation. Okay, so if you look at, from what I was saying before, we're all in the same boat. We've all gone from being this unmanifested being into this world of action and activity. We've all gone through the same birth process. We've all felt, you know, isolated and alone. We've all had people all around us telling us that's the case. But for some of us, there's a calling inside. Almost for everybody, I think. But for some, it's stronger. And there's a calling that's saying, you know what? There's something missing. There's something that's not quite right here. Because I know that there's got to be more to life than what I'm living. And this can happen when you're a child. It can happen through spontaneous spiritual experience. It can happen as you get older, when you've had a crisis. All of a sudden, it's like there's an awakening moment where you're going, wow, there's something terribly wrong here. And I don't really get what it is. I just know there's something terribly wrong. And, you know, I'm going through life and really what's it all about? You know, I've got all the stuff I'm supposed to have. It's, you know, I've grown up, I've had a pretty good childhood, or even if you've had a really crummy childhood, you know, you're still getting through, you're going through the process of living, you're going through the process of surviving. You have moments of like thriving and we're going, wow, this is fantastic. Some people have more of those moments than others. You know, but we've all, I think everybody's had one good moment at least in your life. But you see, so we start waking up to there's got to be more than this. So then what do? We start searching and seeking. But mostly what people are doing at the beginning, they just want to feel better because the pain of this separation is so intense. And as you let in your own actual experience, that first of all, you recognize that there's a feeling of something's missing. And then you actually let in the pain of that feeling because you might feel like there's nothing you can do about it. but you let in that pain, and that drives you to start seeking for something. So normally what we start seeking for is we start seeking for things that are going to take away that pain, things that are going to make us feel better. You know, so where do we look for that? We look through that through objects, through relationship. You know, we're seeking for something that's going to fill that void that we think something is actually missing and something is terribly wrong. So this can be the start, and usually is the start of a spiritual path for most people. Yeah, that's where most people start. I mean, you might have, I don't know if anybody in this call has had it, but you know, as children, you might have had some big spiritual awakening. I know when I was 10 years old, I had my brain completely blown and I saw God for sure. But the first thought that came out of my mind after having this experience where I was just completely wide open was, oh my God, you know, I don't want anybody to know because they're going to think, you know, I'm some kind of Jesus freak or something. You know, so I had the awakening, but I had no understanding of it. So that can happen. Or we can just kind of stay lost in the search, looking for relationships, looking for things, looking for a good job, looking for the right partner, looking for this, looking for that. And we might even get the right partner. We might even be seeking the spiritual experience, but we get the spiritual experience. We get all these things, and yet we still continue to seek. Okay? So self-improvement, the difference, it's a very simple difference, but it's a very difficult thing for us to really get as human beings. The difference between self-improvement and spiritual transformation is self-improvement is basically maintaining a separate sense of self and trying to improve it, trying to feel better, trying to be better. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that's a good place to start. If you're constantly an angry person and you're aggressive with people, it might be a good thing to, you know, not be an angry person and not be aggressive with people. So we can do a lot of self-improvement things, and we become nicer people. But the problem is we're still seeking for something. So the difference of the spiritual transformation is you're not trying to improve the self. You're transcending the idea and the belief of a separate self. Okay, this is a huge difference, because when you are convinced you're a separate self, and even if you've improved a lot and you've changed a lot, you see you as a separate self still thinks that you're in control. Because you're still the one that's deciding what you're going to give up, what you're going to change, how you're going to be, what you think is important, what you don't think is important. So you're in the center, and your separate self, the egoic self, is still completely intact. Now, the thing that's interesting about self-improvement is that when you just think about your own experience, when you have something that you just are sick of, and and you do the work, and you want to actually be free of it. Even if you're in a self-improvement type of situation, and you're just trying to improve the self, you just want to, there's a moment for all of us that we get to the point where we know we can't get rid of it. We kind of get to the end where we just have to give up. You see, so when we give up, that's the moment we surrender, because we've tried everything. We're just like, okay, I just give up. You see, and that's the moment you let go of the illusion of the separate self. And then there's a deep relaxation. Now, you might pull yourself back together, pull that separate identity back in very quickly. But in that moment, something has fallen away, and that something that's fallen away is the insistence that I am a separate I that's in control of everything, because you just gave up that control. So sometimes the self-improvement path includes self-transcendence. But you have to see that the transcendence is not occurring because you figured it out and you did anything. that transcendence occurs because you decided, I just don't know what to do, and you just let go. So I think for a lot of people, it's kind of a three category, you could say, and this is a very gross kind of way to look at it, but you can either be on the path of just self-improvement, where you have no intention of letting go and you just want to be a better person, and that's fantastic. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that. And you may want to stay there, but you may actually awaken to something that's beyond that self-improvement, because somewhere you've either had a spiritual experience, you've had an experience in nature, where all of a sudden the doors of perception open and you recognize something that was beyond anything that you have ever thought of, something that was beyond the mind. You see, so then when that happens to a person, and I think that's probably happened to probably all of you on this call, or you probably wouldn't be on this call, okay? And it doesn't have to be some big, bright light angel kind of experience. It can be just something very, very small, but inwardly you recognize and you know in yourself, is like, okay, there's something else going on here and I know it. Okay, so the first category is basically you're just a separate self and you're improving that self and you're becoming a nicer person. Okay, the second category is you recognize that you are not a separate self. You've had that experience, you understand that for yourself, and now you're in the process of surrendering to that truth. But your center of gravity is still very much in the separate self. Still the self-improvement, the seeking, self-improvement is still going on, because somewhere you still believe that there's something wrong with you. And this is where most people are at. I would probably guess that most of you are at where I'm talking about. Because the difference between category number 2 and the last category is a huge leap. And that huge leap is basically where you recognize that no matter what's going on in your head, no matter what thoughts are occurring, no matter how much you think that you have something to get over, you recognize that all of that seeking is all a play of consciousness, and it means absolutely nothing about you, because the middleman called you recognize it doesn't exist. Okay? So a lot of people, a lot of people are in that transition of recognizing the truth that there is no separate self. But to live that and to rest in that is a leap. But it's a leap that's available here and now. Okay? So you have to recognize that there is only now. So it doesn't matter if you recognize that you were in category 1, just in the self-improvement program, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, no, there's something else. And then you're recognizing that. When is that happening, that recognition? Now. So freedom is here and now. So that doesn't mean you have to do anything with what you were doing before. It means that you give yourself to what you're recognizing now. And in that, there is only now, so all you can do is surrender to that. But then you might recognize out of habit that in the next moment, you're fully convinced you got a problem. You're fully convinced that you're a separate self. But in that moment, you can also recognize, oh my God, that's just that seeking program. And I recognize that. So it's now, 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 now. So then you might get to the point where none of it matters to you. You let go of the self-improvement program. It doesn't mean that you don't need to be conscious of your habits. It just means that you don't take the seeking program seriously anymore. It doesn't mean you don't want to change certain habits of, certain ways of behavior. But you see, you're no longer in a process where you're resisting the truth that there is no separate I. And that's all any of us can do. That's all we can do. You know, and then one day you wake up and you never have another thought about separate self or anything else, and you recognize that you've never existed. And you don't just recognize it, but you actually embody it. Then that's what's happening in that moment. So one way, somebody said this a long time ago, and I think it kind of epitomizes what I'm trying to say, of what the difference between self-improvement and spiritual transformation. So self-improvement is basically if you picture a house and you're moving the furniture around in the house. You know, it starts out and it's a really messy house. It's full of all sorts of stuff. And you realize, okay, I want to get rid of some stuff because it's just so cluttered in here, I can't even breathe. And you start getting rid of all the garbage and stuff. And then it's like, wow, it's looking pretty good. Oh, but still I need to do something else. Okay, I'm going to move this furniture around and move it around a little bit more. And then the house looks better. You know, and more people want to come into your house because it's cleaner and it's nicer. You know, but then all of a sudden you get kind of bored with the way it's looking. So you go out and you want to buy new furniture and move the new furniture around. So you have a new look, but it's still the house. Okay, so you got the house, you're moving the furniture, you're buying new furniture, you all feel good about all the changes that are going on, but the house is still the house. So spiritual transformation is when you're more interested in blowing up the house than moving the furniture. Okay, and a lot of us are still wanting to move the furniture around. So what we want to be interested in is recognizing that there is no house. There never has been a house, there never will be a house. There's not even a house to blow up, really. And then you just rest in that and you just go, wow, there's no house. And then you can say you were born to be real, not to be perfect. And you might even say it feels good to be lost, going in the right direction. Okay, so I think I'm going to end there, but I really want you guys to understand that you see in the spiritual marketplace that we have now, most people are interested in self-improvement. So it's really between you and you. How interested in, you know, how interested are you in being nobody? How interested in you are, you know, in transcending the identification of being the somebody that has a problem to get over, and then someday I'll be free. Or the identification, I'm going to be the somebody who's a spiritual seeker. Because that's much better, you know, than being an ignorant, you know, person who doesn't manage, you know, doesn't do anything for anyone else. Okay, but being identified with being a spiritual seeker is just the insistence that I'm separate and I'm a spiritual seeker. So how interested are you in being nobody? How interested are you in living a life where you get nothing out of it for yourself? And that doesn't mean just doing good things where you have no time to have fun. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ego does not get anything saying, oh, aren't I good? I did this. Aren't I good? I did that. All you can do is appreciate, like, wow, look what's happening around me. And I tell you, the more that you actually lean into this nobodiness, the more you will actually care, the more you will actually act from your passion, and the more you will feel, and the more you will do, but the more you will feel that you're not doing anything. Isn't that interesting that you can do more, you can give more, and you can feel like you're not doing anything? And at the same time, you recognize the body called yourself. You don't deny the fact that you're doing something. You don't deny the fact that you might be having a positive effect on other people. But you are not the one who gets the credit. And you're not even interested in getting the credit. because you know nothing's missing. You don't need the credit. You see, if you just think about it for a second, it's like, wow, what if I actually rested in the truth that nothing is missing? And it's something you can do, you know, later when the webinar is over. Just sit with yourself and ask yourself, is anything really missing? And you might have a list at first. You say, well, yeah, you know, it's like I don't have a partner. That's missing. And then you sit for a moment and go, but is really anything missing right now, even though I don't have a partner? And you go, well, actually, no. Yeah, but what about this? I don't have this. I don't have that. You know, I'm still a mess. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, right now, is anything really missing? And if you recognize there's nothing missing, you see, then you don't have to do anything. You don't have to try to get anything. You don't have to prove that you're okay. You don't have to get over your past. Because you're here, now, period. End of story and beginning of living. Okay, so I think that's what I wanted to say. So why don't we just take a few minutes to just sit quietly, and I just want you to just relax and just let everything sit. So close your eyes again. And don't try to do anything. So that means you don't push anything away. You don't try to change anything. You don't try to have a particular experience. And you don't try to get over any problems you might have or you think you have. So you just watch the whole show. And when you're ready, open your eyes and be ready for what's coming next. That means open your eyes and be alert and awake and ready to go. Not, just sit back and wait to see who's going to say what. Duh, right? So maybe it's a good idea for everybody just for a moment, just to lean in a little bit, like physically lean in. And just see how different that might feel than, bleh. Okay, and if you want to stay there physically leaning in, that's fine. You know, it might be uncomfortable. So of course you don't have to sit there like that forever. But you might find too, as you engage, don't you just want to lean in? Sometimes I feel like climbing through the screen just to hang out with all you guys. It's a very weird experience. Okay, so this is a topic that's so important, you know, and none of us really know how free we want to be until the ego habits in each one of you is challenged. You see, and in that moment, that fear arises, or in that moment where you're just like going, ugh, I can't take it anymore. You see, in that moment, that's the moment of transformation, because you just let the whole story run itself out, just like a really bad soap opera or a really black comedy. Okay, you just let it spin itself out. And then you're just happy. You see, and recognizing that that inherently who we all are all already deeply happy. And it's the belief that we're not happy that triggers this habit of seeking for happiness. It's that simple. It really is. And it's such a strong habit. And that's what self-improvement is. Once you get to a certain point. So I want to make that clear, because there's nothing wrong with trying to improve the self. We're all in a process. So there's nothing wrong with that. And a lot of times that's what you need to go through in order to be able to get enough stability in your character, in order to really lean into dissolving this illusion of the separate self. But it's very important when you get to that point in your own spiritual transformation where you recognize the truth. It's very important that you stop seeking. Because otherwise, you're going to be a perpetual seeker, which means you're starting to play games with God. Because you're saying, I already understand everything. I already understand that I'm inherently happy. But I'm not ready and I don't want to embrace it. So, there's going to be times, you're going to find out how happy you really want to be. And sometimes you're going to be terrified, because when you let in this inherent happiness, the separate self completely disappears. And then what are you going to spend all your time doing if you're not seeking for happiness? You're just going to have to be happy. It's not such a bad deal, you guys. It really is not. Okay, but we're all in, so this is where there's a paradox, because all of us are always already happy and free. That is who we are. And as human beings, in time and space, there is a process that's going on. But the self-improvement program becomes more fascinated with the process, which is endless and will continue forever. You get more fascinated with your process than you do with falling in love with the truth of your own inherent happiness. You see, you want to fall in love with that truth. Not just kind of think, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's true, but, okay? So it's like, just imagine, I love this word, like God intoxication. Just imagine if you lived you lived your life God intoxicated. Now, of course, then the next thought's going to be, well, then I would be walking around in all sorts of ideas we have about what that might look like. But what if you were just God intoxicated, even when things were going terribly wrong on a practical level, or you were struggling? But what if you recognized that below the all the surface craziness, that you recognize in that moment, craziness is going on, and you recognize, oh my God, I am God intoxicated. And you just go, wow, I'm God intoxicated, and this craziness is going on. But you see, now you have a spiritual context that you're looking through. And that's the most important thing, and that's the difference between self-improvement and spiritual transformation. So I hope everybody's getting what I'm saying. And this is a question is between you and you. And the question is, how serious are you taking this, your spiritual transformation? And if you're new to the path, there's nothing wrong with just going, I just want to feel better. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're on a webinar like this, you're probably not interested in more of a therapeutic self-improvement style. You're probably more interested in looking at everything from a spiritual context. Because even if you're new, you can always recognize that, okay, the truth is freedom is here and now. And then you can still do what you've got to do, even if you're convinced you're still a separate self. Somewhere underneath, you always know that freedom is here and now. So I don't want anybody walking away, feeling like if they've improved, that you've done the wrong thing, because you haven't. Okay, so let's open it up for some questions, and let's stick to the topic, okay? And it doesn't have to be a question, it can just be a sharing, because or it can just be honest, like, where are you at with this God intoxication? Are you still seeking, or are you recognizing that happiness? What are you doing in your life? Where do you put your attention? Where do you put your focus? Are you spending all your time trying to get over yourself? Or are you actually leaning into the truth that there's nothing to get over, and yet you're still struggling with that? You see, there's nothing wrong with that. We just have to be interested.
I'll step out and go.
All right, Jim, I'm ready.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to everything that you're saying, and I have been a long time spiritual seeker, and I can see that there's been a real strong tendency to be an egoic. It's been an egoic process. A big part of it is try to be someone special, and to look special to other people, and so I've seen that. I see it now, and I've seen it for a while, and I've let it go. It's been a process, and it gets very confusing, and there's a great deal of fear around it. And and I have this thing, don't let the fear stop you. And I'm just recognizing that when I really take a look at it, if I look at this part of myself and just am aware, that the awareness is not afraid. There's not really a me that's really afraid. There's just a person that's pretending to be somebody that's afraid, that just is resisting giving it up. And that's about as simple as I just see it, I feel it in my body, and I do have that perspective of the love of the divine and that desire to embrace. I mean, it fills my heart. It's just something that comes within out, and that's the direction, and that's the pull. And so it's just a good conversation to hear you articulate, because I can see what's happening, and it is, again, a moment by moment seeing something, and then there's that guy that's full of shit that's trying to pull something, and that's just a movement in consciousness. Okay, can let that go, look a little bit deeper, be aware of that. So I don't know, that's just the part where I am, and I'm appreciating it. And anything you have to say about what you see, about what I've just said, clearing thing up. And I love that. It's good to feel lost as long as you know the direction you're going, because it does feel lost. And at the same time, that pull, that longing in the heart, that movement forward is really my lifeline. That is the thing that I most intimately resonate with, that I lean into. When you talk about leaning, that's the thing that calls.
So can I ask you, Jim, because it's good, you're very articulate about your experience. But is there, when you say that you recognize that there's somebody in there trying to be special, you see, can you recognize that it doesn't matter if that is what's arising in your experience?
Yes.
Because it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if there's somebody in there, because is there really somebody in there? First, that's the way it feels, but is there somebody in there that thinks they want to be special, or is that just a thought?
No, I see it now as an idea and a thought. I mean, I can literally see it as an idea and a thought. And in that sense, it's not real. It's just an idea.
Okay, but does it matter? Does it matter that there's the presence of that thought arises? Can you make that not matter?
That's a good question, Cynthia. No, it seems, I mean, I can, but it does seem to matter. I see, like, oh God, look at that. And so there's definitely a knee-jerk reaction to making it matter, but I see the tendency to make it matter, and can I let go of that tendency right now?
But you see, this is the thing, because you see how you're still in control, because you're the one who's going to let go of the tendency that's arising. So even the idea that there's somebody that I'm going to let go, can you just recognize that that's just experience arising in your awareness? It's nothing. You see, because if you embrace that there is no separate self, it doesn't even matter if there's a whole separate play of selfness going on in your head. You see, it literally doesn't matter. And if you think you have to be the one who's going to make it not matter, you see, what's missing out of this equation is the surrender to the truth that there is no I. You don't get to be the one that does anything. You see, and that's the thing. And even if you think you're still the one that has to let go, you see, that is just another thought, and it means absolutely nothing, because where you end up with, if you keep looking at this, is that everything is just a play of consciousness. And there is no separate I doing anything. It's just part of the play. You see, so in those moments, Jim, I think what would be really helpful is just recognize there's nothing you can do. Because there is no you to do anything with. Now,
Wow.
because what you'll end up doing is you'll just end up kind of trying to, this is why it's self-improvement. See, you're continuously, you've improved a lot. You've done a lot of changes. You've transcended a lot of fear, all of that kind of stuff. But you see, when the fear arises in certain moments, you still think that it's important and it needs to be transcended. But it doesn't. What needs to be transcended is that the arising of fear is a problem. You see, and that doesn't even need to be transcended, because it just is in the end. So right here, right now, you see, you just ask yourself, oh, is there anything really missing in this moment? You know, and I know you can get to the point where you recognize nothing is missing.
Yes, and if I just kind of look in my own experience right now, the thing that I think shouldn't be there is just the fear, is though
Right.
that is something, and it's just the fear. And I'm trying to, it seems like I'm somehow trying to push that out of the way and escape it, or the pain, either one. Just allowing that to be, I mean, I get it, I do.
But you're not even allowing it, because you're not the one who gets to allow it. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's where that seems to be a sticker.
Yeah, and you know, fear is just part of the human experience, because there is something built inside of us, a survival mechanism. Because when you look at fear, it's always the fear of death. You know, if you kind of go back, it's either the fear of death of your self-image, but then if you keep going, it's just the fear of the death of the separate self. It's the fear of the death of who you think you are. And we always tie that to physical death. But the fear of dying is right here, right now. The death of the separate I, or the death of the illusion of the separate I, is the same thing that happens in the moment that the physical body drops. You know, so, you know, just allow yourself to look fear in the face when it arises, and don't move. And what I mean by don't move, it means you don't do anything with it at all. You just don't. It's like looking at the eye of the tiger. And you don't do anything. Nothing. You see? And then, I don't know if you're having the experience when I'm saying this, Jim, are you having the experience of like going, God, I can't wait for the next moment, I'm completely terrified?
Say that again. I can't wait for the next moment because I'm completely terrified.
Yeah, because when you just sit there and you go, okay, looking at fear, like the eye of the tiger, I'm just going to look at it, I'm not going to move. You know, there's something inside of you that's probably like going, okay, bring it on.
Yeah.
And then in that next moment when you're like, you know, you've got the courage and you're saying, bring it on, then of course the fear is going to get more intense. Because then the doubt will arise and say, well, I don't know if I'll be able to do it. You know, but then you just look the doubt straight in the face. And this is not something that you're not doing it because you're trying to get over anything. You're just doing it because that's what it is to be free. See, you're not trying to get over fear. But if fear is the thing that always blocks you, you know, it's just like, okay, something's arising. It happens to be fear, and that's where you have a tendency to collapse, which most people do. So that's the moment you just go, okay. But what I'm saying to you about fear is basically what you do in every moment. You just recognize that you're just here. Period.
Yes. Yes. And I'm just seeing it in you. I'm seeing you do the very thing that you're embracing me to embrace. And I just look out and I just see that and feel it, I think. So,
yeah, and you know, I got to tell you, it's easy for me to do what I'm doing when I'm on a webinar, I'm teaching a retreat. You know, because everybody's looking at me and I better walk my talk.
right.
You know, but the moments that I wouldn't say are most challenging, but to me are more, I could say challenging, but it's just when, you know, when everyday stuff is going on. You know, how am I going to be then? Like I'm in Lisbon now, as I was on this tourist bus today, and I had a splitting headache, and they were supposed to stop at stop number 14, and they didn't stop, so I had to wait till stop number 15 to get off the bus, and I hurt my knee, so I was going to have to walk farther. And it was like, oh my God, all these problems. And then we had this bus driver who just was going on and on. She just was like nonstop talking. And it was just, you know, I just wanted to throw her out the window and drive the bus myself, or at least stop the bus and get off the damn bus. And I'm just watching this whole thing play. So to me, that's the moments that are really challenging because, you know, well, Pete was there, so obviously he's going to see me. But, you know, those are the moments that I have to really hold myself to something, because it would be very easy just, you know, to let it go and turn into a crazy person. So, you know, I appreciate what you're saying, but it's just a case of, you know, it's like whatever's happening in your experience, we all have to be ready to decide where are we going to stand in relationship to what's true.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and I could say probably today with the lady and the bus driver and everything, I probably did about 90% well, and I had 10%. I did have a few moments where I was just like, Pete, I'm going to kill this woman. So, you know, I'm working on it. But even when all that stuff happens, you see, I don't feel like I have to seek to get over something.
Right.
That's the difference.
There's no end point to it. Like
Yeah.
It's the process, and you're embracing the process as you're moving through it. And you do the best that you can with the clarity and the heart that you have in that moment.
Right.
Yeah.
And you hold yourself to that because, you know, sometimes we underestimate how clear our hearts are.
That's, yes.
You know, because when everybody, you know, people have that saying of saying, you know, well, I'm only human, which basically means, well, I can't really be better than shit. You know? So look, we all have the same tapes playing in our heads, you know? You know, I had an interesting thing happen last night. I went to a one-woman show, and it's a woman that was on a retreat with us. And I didn't even know, but she's, you know, she's quite famous, and she did this one-woman show for the last 5 years. And it's like, she does it in this theater of like 350 people, and it's sold out all the time. And it's amazing. And I tell you, this woman gets on, and it's like an hour and a half of like full-blown. And she, you know, and she has no problem talking about the Portuguese habits, and, you know, and she's hilarious. She's completely hilarious and funny when she acts out all the Portuguese conditioning, because she's Portuguese, and, you know, she's going on and stuff. But then after the show, she struggles with doubt, and, you know, and it's like, but she's in a process. So she's willing to put herself out on that stage and just in passion, you know, she's just inspiring a lot of people, and people come. It's every 2 weeks she does the show, and people just keep coming and coming and coming. And she's basically just telling them off, you know, and making them laugh. But it's very serious. In fact, the series is called Serious Conversations. But she still struggles with her own things, but she's in a process, but she doesn't let it hold herself back from it. She still does what she knows she has to give, and she's a work in progress. So that's what we all can do.
It's like,
you know,
that sign, yeah, the sign behind you, you were born to be real, not perfect.
Exactly. Because whose idea, you know, it's like, who's the I that's coming up with the idea of what's perfect?
Right.
Not a very reliable source.
Yeah. Yeah. Very helpful.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Always good to talk with you.
Thank you.
Okay. Jane. Hi, Jane. I can't see the second screen, Laura, so you got to keep an eye out. Okay.
Hi, Cynthia. Hi, everybody. This question has preoccupied me ever since I started my spiritual path, because I've done both simultaneously, in the sense that I've been a seeker. I am a seeker, knowing at the same time that I don't need to seek anything, because I am spirit, I am presence. But I practice. But at the same time, I have a very active practice in nonviolent communication and improving myself, the small self. And I've spent periods of time when I think, oh, I shouldn't really be doing NVC. All I have to do is be a spiritual person. And then I'll just be perfect. And so I kind of, then I sit down to meditate all the time and just devote myself to God. And then I realize I don't even know how to talk to my husband, and my daughter arrives from Vancouver and asks me for money, and I don't know what to do. And then I get consumed with self-doubt about how I really need to improve myself. And so I have these two things that are going on simultaneously. And I guess what I'm saying is that, is it true that you can just really just love God and forget all of the improvement?
Yeah. Because you see, when you forget about all the improvement, you're seeing through the illusion of the I that needs to be improved. Okay? And then you're willing to just respond to life as it's coming. And as you're willing to respond, you see, you'll surprise yourself what's actually coming out of you. So you might have a confrontation with your husband, or you have a conversation with your daughter, or whatever, right? But if you're present really with them, and not with your identity of trying to be the one who's responding perfectly, or, you know, or the spiritual one, or whatever, you see, then you're not imposing any kind of separation. You're willing to take the risk to respond. You're not trying to do it perfect. You see, if you're trying to do something perfect, you're not taking the risk to let go of the one who needs to do it perfectly. So you will be able to respond to all these situations more perfectly, but not based on the idea of perfection. It's based on the idea that you are a human being, and you are that which is always already free. But you're here in a complex situation in human existence, but that's not a limitation. So you definitely can do it. Anybody can, because that's what's real and true. You know, and then you'll be direct when you need to be direct. You'll be soft when you need to be soft. You'll say spiritual stuff when spiritual stuff is needed to be said. You'll say you know, maybe harsh things when harsh things are need to be said. You'll have the humility to look back and say, wow, I actually could have done that better. You'll have the humility to be able to look and say, wow, I actually did that well. And I'm going to actually own the fact that that's the case.
There's this conviction that my conditioned self is going to pop up all the time and ruin everything.
But that's doubt, right?
Yeah.
And is that really, so then you hold yourself back because you're afraid that you're going to ruin everything?
Well, that I have the idea that, well, I'm conditioned to be an unassuming wife or a mother who can be walked all over. And so then my daughter arrives and I guess I really believe that this small self cannot change, or has been conditioned in so many ways that I need to work on it to be able to not be like that.
No, because it's a paradox. Because if you have a strong habit, you need to recognize and be humble in the face of that strong habit. So if you have a habit of letting your daughter walk all over you, then you have to do something different, right? But the doubt that you're going to mess everything up, you see, that's just ego.
Mm.
And the identity of having to be somebody is just ego. It is. It's just ego saying that you are not who you already are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so what I would ask you, Jane, is, you see, when you said at the beginning, you said that you're a spiritual seeker, and then you said that you are, you still are a spiritual seeker, even though you found what you're looking for. You see, so what I want to know from you is, what is it that you found? What's your deepest understanding of what's true?
Well, that I am not that conditioned self, that is a figment of my imagination. I've constructed it myself, and that I am pure spirit, manifest through this body, this person that I call myself, but that I'm really one with everything that is in the universe.
Okay, so can you tell me your deepest spiritual, tell me the experience you had to have that understanding?
Well, I thought I was going to die, and then I realized that I could die and still be alive. I won't go into the actual experience. I was walking a dog and I was in nature, and I thought that I kept asking myself, who am I? Who am I? It was an exercise. I thought, what am I going to do while I walk the dog? I got to think of something. I'll ask, who am I? And then I realized that I was terrified of dying. That I passed this kind of moment where I was absolutely terrified, and I kind of went into a space where I realized that I could die. That part of me could die, and I would still live.
Okay, so that's your deepest understanding, and it's real, right?
Yeah, it was very real. It is very real.
Okay, so then you're having a conflict with your husband, or your daughter just came.
Right.
Okay, so you see what you're denying in your own experience. You're basically kind of taking a victimized position to your conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know something more. So you see, if you actually live up to your deepest understanding, which basically means when you're standing there in front of your daughter and you watch yourself getting ready to do the same thing you always have done, you just take a deep breath and you allow something different to happen. You just don't allow yourself to do what you've always done, because you will get what you've always gotten. Okay? But you're denying your deepest truth. In those moments, you allow yourself to do that. And it's important for anybody, this is true for everybody on this call, it's important that if you have, if the doors of perception have opened for you, and you have awakened to something true and real, there's an obligation that goes with that.
Mm.
You know, because every time we don't respond to that, which is lots of people are not responding to their deepest understanding, every time it weakens our resolve to live it.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if you've done that 1,000 times or 5,000 times, because there's never too late. It's never too late to let everything be as it is. Because now is now. It doesn't matter if you've given yourself this space to fall back and be intimidated by the idea that you're a conditioned human being. It doesn't matter if you've done that for 40 years or whatever.
71.
Because now is now. Now is now. And it's really between you and you.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the hardest thing. This is the hardest thing. That's why I wanted to do the webinar about this. Because this habit of continuously seeking just erodes the human being.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and I saw you on retreat a couple of years ago, you know, and I could see how you struggled with being the perpetual seeker. But I also saw that, you know, something happened on that retreat that took you, where you actually, you know, you found that understanding that you already had. You found it again,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm remembering correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to decide how
Yeah.
serious you are about this. But, you know, don't make excuses. You know, the truth will set you free. And
Right.
I think, you know, this happens for a lot of people. I think it happens for everybody, but, you know, it's a good example of what you were speaking about, Jane, and also what Jim was speaking about. But I think it's true for everybody. You know, there's just a moment that it's between you, and you have to ask yourself, how, you know, how free do I want to be? Do I really want to take this seriously? And you have to be ruthlessly honest with yourself. And you have to leave space that maybe the answer is no, I don't want this. Okay? But the thing is, it's not the answer to the question that's the most important. The most important thing is that you're willing to be truthful.
Mm-hmm.
And even if the answer is no, you see, in that moment, your willingness to say no to that answer, in that moment, you actually want to be free enough to give an answer you think is spiritually incorrect.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting the answer for you is no, but it's just to put everything on the table, you know, and if we do this, the truth does set us free because we're willing to be truthful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because everybody is like, do I want to be free more than anything else? I used to go, do I want to be free more than anything else? Yes, I really want to be free more than anything else. Yes, I really want to be free more than anything else. Yes, I really, really want to be free more than anything else. But I would never really answer the question. I would come with the answer so quick. I never gave myself to go, well, do I really want to be free more than anything else? Do I really want to be free? Do I? You know, and then fear may arise. And then you're like, do I really want to be free? And I've gotten to the point, you know, this was quite a few years ago, where I actually said, well, no, I actually don't. But as soon as I said no, there was space to realize that it wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
But see, I had to back it up with action then after that. Because otherwise I knew I was just, you know, I was just playing a game with myself. Yeah. So that's a question we all have to ask. And, you know, and be willing to like have the wrong answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Cynthia. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, the truth will set you free, you guys, everybody, you know, just be honest with yourselves. What we're talking about, you know, the difference between self-improvement and spiritual transformation. You know, spiritual transformation is like in our postmodern existence on this planet, you know, spiritual transformation is not held as a high value.
Mm-hmm.
It just isn't. And so we have to go against quite a lot to even be interested in spiritual transformation. But if you really are interested in taking it as far as you can in this lifetime, you know, you have to be willing to be just politically incorrect, socially incorrect, everything incorrect. But it doesn't mean you start acting reckless and silly and hurtful. But you just have to realize that this is a big deal we're doing. And it's not meant to scare anybody, but you know, it's like when I really get real with this question, you know, come up every once in a while. And I know I want to take this as far as I can take this in this lifetime, because I've been given so much to get me to the point where I'm not afraid anymore, to, you know, as far as I know. I want to take it as far as I can. And then every day, it's just like, what's happening now? What's happening now? It's constant. It's all about responding. It's not about coming up with a certain position that is fixed. But something that doesn't change is that, you know, like I know that this is what I want. And I will be challenged, and I have been challenged. And I'll find out every time I'm challenged. Do I want to be perfect, or do I want to be real? That's what it really comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys really, really think about this question for yourself, and don't be afraid of the answer, you know, and really start reaching out, and don't keep your spiritual path just to yourself. You know, reach out to other people, engage. You know, you're all on this webinar, it's fantastic. So keep coming, for one thing, but really engage with other human beings who are interested in this. Because there's such a joy in going into all these things together. It's not just, you know, everybody wants to be with other people for support, and the support is part of it. But I tell you, people forget about the joy of just being together. There's a lot of joy in getting out of your own house, you know, and engaging with other people who are interested in the same thing you are. But then, of course, if you leave your house and you engage with other people, you might find out some things about your beliefs that are not really helping you to live what you want to live and be who you actually are. I'm looking at the clock, and I can't believe we're 5 minutes over. It's like tonight just kind of flew past. So I hate to actually end it, but I'm kind of in the mood to keep going, but I try not to do that. So, yeah, let's, you know, we only have so much time in this world, you guys. Let's just take it seriously. You know, because let's love as much as we can love, and let's give as much as we can give, and not make all of the obstacles, our so-called obstacles, let's just make them a little less important than, you know, being a manifestation of giving and love. Let's make that a bit more important and see where we go. Is everybody up for that? You know, and I want to invite you guys all, you know, it's like, I know you live in different countries and stuff, and some of you are part of our Sangha, but the Awaken Life Project Sangha is growing bigger and bigger all the time, and I don't know what we're going to do with all the people that are joining. But you know, I want to invite all of you guys to engage with us as much as you want to. And, you know, we're trying to figure out different ways to do that. But, you know, this webinar is one of them. But also, too, come on retreat with us, just for the pure joy of it. You know, Portugal's not that far. It's just a plane ride away. I go see my mother in California twice a year. I mean, come on, if I can do it, you can do it. So I just really want to put that out to you, only because in my own self, I just feel a lot of passion to be with everybody a lot more than once a month. So, yeah. Okay, so I think Laura, this is where Laura comes in and does all her practical things. But before we do that, is everybody with me on this? Hey, can we just unmute all the microphones now before the practical stuff, just for a little change of, you know? So whatever you want to say, I want everybody on the count of 3, just say whatever you want to say, okay? And let's see what happens. 1, 2, 3. I'm so excited. I just love everybody. It's so amazing. You see, there's nothing egoic about that, is there? And everybody's like, oh, you're not worried about, oh, am I going to look good or am I going to look stupid? You don't even care, right? I mean, really, come on, let's be real. We don't really care about
alle die Mikrofone an und sagen ciao und so.
What was that? Somebody is continuing. This is great. Okay, Laura, I guess now you can go. Didn't that feel good though, you guys? I felt it was really good.
Ja. Ich habe bei 3 irgendwas gemacht und jeder hat einfach irgendwie so einen Scheiß gemacht. Ich habe so richtig komisch so komisch gekreischt.
I can't understand a word you're saying, Jana, but you look really good.
I was telling her about the situation. How I just did some random screaming.
Okay, good. Okay, Laura, so gotta make it interesting and make it exciting.
Okay. Well, talking of retreats, coming up is the New Year retreat, and there's only 3 places left. So you have a. I'm going to mute you.
Oops, I think you got.
Hey, there we go. Yeah, so the New Year's retreat, which I went on last year and was amazing, is from the 23rd of December to the 3rd of January here in Portugal.
And there's only 3 spaces left.
Only 3 spaces. So if you have any impulse to go, then I would snap up one of those places because you really won't regret it. It's 7 days with Cynthia in an amazing location. And yeah, it's really an opportunity to dive really, really deep into everything. Cynthia's
and even if you don't have an impulse, you should come anyway.
It's the 27th of December.
Yes.
It's after Christmas.
Yeah, it's after Christmas, so no family problems.
Exactly. So that's coming up, and yeah, actually that's one of the only opportunities until next year to go on retreat with Cynthia, so that's another really good reason to come. And the next month's webinar is back on the Wednesday, first Wednesday of the month, so that's on the 4th of December. And I'll send out all the details and links for that webinar and the retreat tomorrow. And just to remind you also that Cynthia does these webinars by donation, and I'll send out the ways you can make a donation if you wish in the email.
And if you want to also, if you have a particular topic you want me to talk about, just send us an email.
Cool. On one other exciting thing, and we'll email you this, Peter, Cynthia's husband, has just finished revising and the last edits on his amazing book, and that'll be coming out in about a month. Is it available in a month on Amazon?
Yeah, it's probably gonna be about 6 to 8 weeks, but not in time for Christmas. But it's for those of you that might have had the old version, this version is expanded, and it's really good. It's really good. So everybody should get a copy and give it to everybody you know.
So we'll send you details of that when it's available. I think that's it from me. That's all the practical.
Okay, and I don't have a topic for next month yet, but I'll get one soon. So if you have any interest, make sure you put something out. And yeah, and invite your friends, you know, because you never know what people might be interested in. So if you think anybody would just be interested, coming on this webinar is kind of it's an easy way for somebody to kind of put their toe in without too much commitment. Okay? Okay.
Cool.
So, time to say goodbye. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye.
Bye. Nice to see you, Rick.
Bye bye. Ciao.
Bye. Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, we're running out of people here.
Bye, Abhidanja.
Hey, Abhidanja.
Hi, Lucia.
Oh, you guys are in the dark. There you are. I can't see. I don't know who Felipa is. So bye, Felipa. I don't know who you are. David and Emma. Okay, Laura, you ready to hit the big button?
I am. See you
Okay, everybody ready? We're all going to disappear. Ready?
later.